Solange Moujan joins me on the set now to take a look at what the papers have been saying today. Hi, Solange.
Hi, Jeannie.
You're starting with a focus on the plight of women and children in Ukraine.
Yeah, there are some 6 million children that are in grave danger in Ukraine, according to Save the Children. And as we can see on the front page of Le Figaro and in an in-depth article, inside their little bodies show the signs of Russian shells. In Ukrainian children's hospitals, there are open wounds, lonely beds, fear, and deep trauma. It is a trauma that is shared by many mothers as well. As we see in The Guardian, a photograph of a 27-year-old mother, Olga, who was wounded by shrapnel to the head, has begun to go viral. She explained, quote, blood started flowing and it all flowed on the baby. I couldn't understand it. I thought it was her blood, end quote. Luckily, both will physically be fine. Now, other haunting stories are coming from the New York Times. It interviewed mothers who escaped. It tells of families who'd run out of water, of moms who, quote, just wet their lips with drops of water so as not to die of thirst, saving what little water they had for the children and the elderly. Another mother explained that after escaping, she lives in a parallel reality where a part of her is indeed physically in a shopping mall, but another part of her is, quote, still there under occupation. Another mother said, while explaining that her husband stayed in Kyiv, quote, it is a sin for me to complain. I was received by a wonderful Polish family. I don't have a right to cry, end quote. Meanwhile, Le Monde takes us on a parallel journey. It tells us of the stuffy toys, of the teddy bears that Ukrainian children are carrying and finding solace in, a little bit of normalcy and comfort while the world around them falls apart. But there is always hope, as the Edinburgh News explains. It tells a story today of Katya. She's among a group of Ukrainian refugee orphans who's going to Scotland for a new life, saying she's nervous and excited.
A lot of emotion there in those stories, Solange. The war in Ukraine also is going to have a drastic effect on food supplies, and you've been looking at that as well.
Yeah, let's begin with food in Russia. Kommersant, the Russian paper, says long-lasting goods are flying off shelves there as, quote, societies preparing for social wintering because of sanctions. Sugar is one of those items. It's become hard to find, the paper says, with Russian consumers fearing, as the title of the article reads, quote, the unbearable sweetness of being. And then there's Ukraine itself, where it is being that is the struggle, or staying alive despite shortages within besieged cities like Mariupol. And then there's the effect on the world. As the Wall Street Journal explains, the Russian invasion is curtailing Ukraine's harvest exports. And that's going to hurt countries that heavily rely on it for wheat, corn, cooking oil. And the article says that like with the Ukraine's military efforts, there is some rallying going on. Exports are being rerouted. There's requests for help for supplies and replacements of Russian fertilizer being thought of. But there is and will still be a food crisis. The question, the Wall Street Journal tells us, is how bad it will be. And it is a case, as the UAE's Gulf News explains, where, quote, governments are panicking about a potential global food crisis. EU officials are meeting today to discuss how to secure trade flows and keep food stockpiles full.
Now, interestingly, one country that could potentially benefit from a wheat shortage is India.
Yeah, India is currently in talks to start wheat exports to Egypt, which is a country that is particularly vulnerable to shortages of bread. Now, the Hindustan Times explains that India could boost its wheat exports, which, with a billion-plus population of its own, normally focuses on domestic supply, where prices are capped in India on wheat. But the promise of such exports could be a boon and a bane, the paper says, with India benefiting from new trade opportunities, like with Egypt, cheaper Russian oil as well, but potentially having to pay higher prices, higher costs on other goods. Now, the Diplomat, the Indo-Pacific site based in Washington, tries to explain India's, quote, awkward support of Russia in this crisis. It dives into a widely held perception in India that Russia is, quote unquote, a true friend, the article says, and a strong resentment and disenchantment of the United States that remains among some in India.
Now, of course, the war in Ukraine has really been dominating the French presidential election campaign. People are voting here in France in just about 3 weeks. What's the press been saying about that today?
Well, there is a whiff of spring in the air, and to bring in the new season, the far left's Jean-Luc Mélenchon, he held a rally in Paris yesterday, and tens of thousands of people showed up. Le Printemps Mélenchon is how Libération called the spring rally. The left-leaning paper praised it, saying it was full of lyricism and that there was actually very little ennui at the meeting. But the paper did discuss criticism as well over Mélenchon's dedication of the meeting to the Ukrainian resistance. Now, Libération wonders if this was political opportunism after Mélenchon sort of backpedaled on his pro-Russian stances, or just a clumsy faux pas. Now, the election is, L'Opinion notes, Mélenchon's final push to try and woo voters into ensuring that he and not a far-right candidate could make it to the second round, which after his 2012 and 2017 attempts, Mélenchon has been dreaming of this possibility of making it to the second round. Le choix, c'est moi. The choice is me. That is how Mélenchon portrays himself, according to L'Opinion, as he believes and tries to convince others that he has a real shot in beating Emmanuel Macron.
All right, Solange, you're going to wrap up now with something that actually sounds kind of dreamy to me. You found an article that encourages us to wear sweatpants to work.
It is dreamy to me, too. The Wall Street Journal, of all places, is waxing lyrical about working in comfortable and casual clothes. It notes a study that measured the impact of clothes for remote workers. Formal wear did not consistently increase those workers' sense of power, and to boot, comfortable clothes, there's the sweatpants, did boost their authenticity and their engagement, indicating that they were more immersed in their tasks and more present. Now, it's a dressed-down look that one man in Japan has mastered. He's actually made a name for himself and a business for himself thanks to his signature blue hat and hoodie, and of course, his blank stare. His name is Shoji Morimoto, and he's known as Rental-san. His superpower of sorts is actually to do nothing. People hire him to simply accompany them to dinner, to a doctor's office, to a train platform where there's nobody to say goodbye. He'll be there being the one to wave to you. The Post explains that this is a cottage industry in Japan, and Rental-san, with a TV series, 3 books about him, has become a master of sorts of simply being there for people in casual clothes.
Solange, thanks so much for that. Solange Moujan there with your look at today's press review. Don't forget, if you want to get a closer look, you can always check that out on our website. The address is france24.com.